Really?
Welcome back to SoulBack. This is the R&B podcast. Kyle here. I have Ed with me. Ed, what is going on?
Yeah, it's your boy, yours truly. What's going on, my dude, Kyle? I'm chilling on our end. How's it going over in the great white north of Canada?
Oh, you know it goes. We were actually all supposed to be at Essence this weekend, but it looks like Tom was the only one that went because we're still here recording this podcast.
Oh my God. Yes, Tom is out doing the thing. I had to bow out. Actually, am heading to my old stomping grounds of Louisville, Kentucky. Shout out my boys player to go to a wedding. So I'm a little closer than our boy Tom is. He's somewhere eating chicken
actually, just
poorly.
kidding.
I can guarantee you that.
No, Tom is actually, he has baby duties again, so he won't be able to join us. But we will talk about Tom like we do on every podcast, just to inform the people on what he does and what type of weird behavior he indulges into. And as you know, Ed, over the last couple of podcasts now, we have been talking about Tom's chicken wings eating habits. Just to summarize for everyone, he just takes a bite of his chicken wing and pretty much chucks it away after. And his rationale or reason for it is because he doesn't want to look like a savage while eating the chicken wings. But
please,
Ed, I think you and I have different theories on this, and I think your wife actually explained it to us. But before we get into that, Ed, can I give you my theory?
Go ahead and give me your theory, because his theory of I don't want to look like a savage is the most ridiculous thing ever. Because what's his excuse the other 365 days of the year? Because he looks quite ridiculous just on the regular to me.
All right. Well, I'm thinking, you know, at restaurants they give you like free bread, and at, I think Olive Garden they also give you free salad.
Yeah.
I think Tom is abusing those privileges, so by the time the chicken wings come, he's already full, so he can't finish it. That sounds like something Tom would do.
No, that actually sounds exactly like something he would do. If anybody's gone out to eat with this guy, you know what I'm talking about. Now,
right.
What I think could be an issue, because here's the thing, and we may have mentioned this before. My lovely wife also eats chicken like a freaking parakeet like Tom, and it is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Most of the time I just end up finishing her chicken, which is actually a plus of getting married, by the way. You get extra chicken. So anyway, I asked her, I'm like, why do you eat the middle? Because that's so weird, and you like leave all this chicken. She said to me that she thinks it's weird to eat something that like she touched. So when she's holding the chicken from the top and the bottom, she doesn't like eating the part that she touched, which is weird. But there's also a kind of bizarre logic to that. So maybe subconsciously, Tom doesn't want to eat the part that he was holding. I'm trying to give the boy the benefit of the doubt. I don't know.
So you're telling me then if Tom is picking up a French fry, he'll bite like 75% of it and chuck the edge away because that's the part he touched?
Well, no, I asked that, and she said no. It's just like chicken for some reason. There were like a series of foods, and French fries is not one of them. Because as I have discussed on the previous podcast, I don't like touching a lot of food, which is why I eat French fries with a fork most of the time, which everybody thinks is weird, and I don't think it's weird. I think y'all are weird. Got salt all over your hands. Greasy hands. Anyway, so I don't know. That's just her theory. I'm wondering if subconsciously Tom is having the same thing. But apparently it's kind of subjective. Sometimes you do it with chicken, but not other foods. I don't know. I'm trying to psychoanalyze crazy people. Give me a break.
Yeah, no, there can't be any exceptions. It has to be either 100%. You're touching and eating it all, or zero. There's no 50-50 depending on what food it is. That's ridiculous. And I'm going with my theory. Tom just likes that sourdough bread with the butter. But let me tell you, Tom, it's all carbs and it's not good for you.
Yes, and with Tom, that's probably a very likely theory too.
Yes. Well, speaking of R&B, if we can get into that for a moment here, Ed. We have a couple things to talk about, but man, I just came across Robin Thicke's single, That's What Love Can Do. Like, I heard it when it first came out, but I totally forgot about it, and I hit play on YouTube the other day, and I still like that record. It sounds like a timeless, classic Robin Thicke record.
It's weird. If you remember, what was the name of that track that came out before that? Morning Sun. Like, there's so
Yeah.
many good tracks post the Paula garbage that were very, very good, and he just dropped them, and we were like, okay, Dick's back on the road. We're gonna hear something from him, and then we never hear anything from him again. So, kind of odd. I'm not sure what's going on with him. I don't know if you guys have heard any rumblings from his camp. I haven't heard anything. Been radio silence. But the man still clearly has it. It's not like he's completely run out of gas in the tank. He still got a little bit in there. It's just weird that he'll just give us this little teaser and then run into his underground bunker for another 9 months.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I think about it, with 2020 coming up in just really 6 months, Ed, we'll be in the new decade. As
Weird.
I think back, does Blurred Lines have an argument for being the song of the decade in terms of popularity? Because that song, when it came out, it was huge.
I mean, if you want to go by numbers, you can make an argument. But it's just been so maligned between the lawsuit, between the whole, oh, it's glorifying rape culture, blah, 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 blah. That song has just been so maligned at this point that I don't think that you can have a legitimate argument for it, sure. But it's really hard to make that argument. In the next couple months, one of the projects I'll be working on is talking about some of the best R&B songs of the past decade. And best believe that's going to be pretty high on the list. But number one, I don't know. I just think there's too much baggage attached to that one.
Yeah, maybe it'll go to like Happy by Pharrell or one of those Taylor Swift songs that I know you like a lot.
Absolutely not.
All right, so I've got some movie stuff to talk to you about, Ed. Some film stuff that has to do with R&B. Brandy did an interview recently and announced that she will be working on a biopic. And guess who will be playing as Brandy, Ed?
I'm afraid to ask who.
Brandy.
Okay.
Is that allowed? Can you play yourself?
You can play yourself at the last 3 minutes when they're showing adult you playing at some greatest hits concert. But how is she gonna be sitting at the table on the set of Thea in 1994, a 40-year-old lady? Or how is she gonna be sitting up in my room and she longer than the bed she's sitting on? Like, what? How is this gonna work?
I don't know, but that's apparently the plan. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And if she's playing herself, there's a lot of stuff I'm curious to know what she's going to actually include in this biopic. Because she's had she's had a long career with ups and downs.
She's had a very long career, and I know a lot of the Brandy stands listening right now. If you want to come scream at me, hit me up on ET Bowser on Twitter. You know how to do it. But there's a lot of ups and a whole lot of downs to Miss Vocal Bible's career. And if they want to be true and tell a great story, I mean, this is just kind of the writer, the journalist in me. I always want artists to be as true to their art and their stories as possible in these things. It would be a compelling story. Now, if we just get sugar-coated, hey, I came out on a TV show and I had Moesha and Whitney was my best friend and I hate Monica and ha 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 and I became the best singer in the world, I'm going to be all over that thing because that's a lie and the truth ain't in it. But we will see. I still think it's ridiculous that she's playing herself. Get one of the Chloe and Halle girls. They can do it. Put some braids in their hair. That'd be perfect.
Well, Ed, speaking of Chloe and Halle, Halle will be playing Ariel in The Little Mermaid, which is very exciting news. And I'm curious, will this help their career at all in terms of them as a duo? Because, Ed, they're pretty underrated. I know they get lumped into that Beyonce world a lot, and you know, and Beyonce is a great platform for them, but they've put out some great records, and it's just like, at what point do they start blowing up? Is this film gonna help?
Well, I think it's weird because a lot of times their careers are tied to Beyonce, and because of that, they're kind of unfairly grouped, and people expect them to sound like Destiny's Child or whatever. That's unfair. If anyone is listening and has not heard their last album, The Kids Are Alright, I had that on my list of one of the best of 2018. It's a very good album. Go check that out. They have a sound of their own, but when I think about whether this will help their musical career, I don't know if that's the case, because what this is starting to feel like a little bit to me, and correct a player if I'm wrong, it's starting to remind me a lot of how Jennifer Hudson went that route. And I'm not saying that she's going to get a freaking Academy Award to be an Ariel, like, calm down. But I see this career path, even kind of like Tyrese, where they came in doing the music thing, started getting a lot of big breaks in Hollywood. I don't watch, what's the show? Blackish, Grownish. I don't watch it like I used to, but apparently they're on that show, and they're well received there. So I think this could be a great gateway for her into acting, but I don't know if it's going to translate over into the music world. We shall see, and I really hope so, because they are a couple of very talented artists that deserve a lot of shine. But this could just be an avenue for a launching pad into Hollywood silver screen superstardom, and not necessarily the musical route that her mentor has taken. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm happy that she got the role because she is talented. But, Ed, I'm about to say something controversial here, so hold me back because I'm about to say it.
I'll hold you back. Say it.
She got the role because Beyonce's playing Nala in Lion King, and it was a favor because it's all under the Disney umbrella. I'm just saying it right now.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't heard that. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised. Those Carters have a long reach, player, but I don't. Man, now you're getting me. You're getting me. It's like Tom has infested this podcast with his conspiracy theories. But I'm gonna say that's wrong. But the more I think about it, the more I'm stroking my chin. Like, the brother got a point.
Just watch when Pocahontas comes out. Chloe will be playing Pocahontas.
Well, listen, if they got Blue Ivy running around in this Mulan movie, something has gone horribly wrong, and then you definitely have a point.
Yeah. Speaking of movies that have been questionable, there was one that came out recently. I think it's the DeBarge movie that aired on TV One with Adrian Marcel, with Lloyd, and an all-star cast. And I don't think it got very positive reviews, Ed?
I don't know what reviews you saw. Now, I can't speak for it because I did not see it myself. But shout out to my peoples, my fam at the Soul and Stereo Cypher on Facebook. Go check it out if you haven't already. But they were talking about it. I forgot to hit my DVR and to record it. And suspiciously, they weren't playing any replays. I'm like, why aren't they playing any replays? Probably because if I listened to my Cypher fam, it was hot garbage and it doesn't deserve to be replayed. I kind of want to see it for the train wreck value, but from what I heard, that thing ain't popping.
I saw a screen cap of Adrian Marcel with the makeup on to look like his character, and he looked kind of scary. I love you, Adrian, but that makeup was not it.
We have talked long and long about those wigs that they're wearing. Straight up cosplay wigs from 1970. It looks awful. But I don't know. I can't diss the movie. I haven't seen it. Maybe someone will tell us in the comments how great it is, but I kind of doubt
it. Right. Ed, we have a couple of albums that I want to talk about. One that came out last week was Daniel Caesar's Surprise album, which we spoke pretty highly of with the Brandy collaboration. Love Again, which I think everyone is starting to really fall in love with now. But the news came out, Ed. The album only sold 3,000 copies with streams included. So it sold 2,000 physical copies, and then with the streams accumulated, it totaled up to 3,000. It did not seem like people were checking for your boy Daniel Caesar this time around.
Not at all. And I think that is a couple of things that kind of go into that. Number one, y'all got to start with these surprise albums. I know it's cute. I know Beyonce got y'all head gassed up, but everybody's not Beyonce. If I dropped a surprise album tomorrow, you know how many people buy it? 3 because no one would know what's out. There's a thing called promotion, and I think that we get away from that by thinking, I'm going to surprise it and drop it out there, and it's going to be so much buzz, and this and that. Well, if you drop an album with so much buzz, Twitter has the attention span of a gnat that has been stepped on already. So if you drop an album at a time where Twitter's talking about anything, whether it's Black Ariel or Freddie Gibbs or whatever it is, you are risking a chance of not very many eyeballs being on your thing. Daniel Caesar should have promoted this freaking thing. He's a viable artist. Stop being cute with these releases. Second of all, there's still a segment of Twitter, and I won't get into it because Lord knows my head will explode. He's still on the canceled list for several members of Twitter, so there was already some, I'm not listening to that because blah, 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 blah. Just wasn't a good rollout. And even though this album was okay, I think he's got to do better next time and actually promote stuff. That's how stuff used to work, y'all.
The one positive thing that comes out of this is that Love Again will also appear on Brandy's upcoming album in the fall. So it's sort of like a dual single. And I guess they'll be promoting it together, which is kind of cool. But, Ed, speaking of albums, this is not a surprise album. This isn't even an album. It is an EP. Elle Varner is set to drop her 9-track EP next week. But here's what's interesting. Along with Elevation coming out next week, soon after that will be her sophomore album. Ed, what's the mindset with this release? Why is she doing this? Why is she putting out 2 projects at once?
Well, I understand the mindset. The mindset is, number one, she's probably sitting on a ton of music that she's in love with, and she's like, oh, I got to get this music out here. It's so great. You know, a lot of times we get, and as a critic, as a reviewer that I am, I also get raked across the coals from artists because they say, oh, you're just so flippant and you just destroy this stuff that I put my heart and soul into and blah, blah, blah. I do understand from their preview that what we hear for like a 3.5-minute song is sometimes like their baby, their child. This is a thing that they have cultivated and worked on and put so much blood, sweat, and tears in. It's more than a song, it's a part of them. Unless you're talking about Cousin Chris, then you just dig out in the dumpster and throw something on your album. But more on him later. So when it comes to Elle, I think what she is she's like, let me drop this little teaser, get everybody excited, and boom, new project, because this new album has been delayed for Lord knows how long. So not only do I get some of this music that I want shared off my plate, it can be an appetizer leading into this bigger project. Now y'all know, everybody listening to this podcast knows that I have been critical of Ms. Varner over the years. But I may, as Tom says, I may be harsh, but I'm fair. So I will listen to the EP with open ears, as I always do. And if it's hot, I'll say so. And if it ain't, I'll say so. So we'll see.
Well, I know for you, it's not that you don't like her music. You just don't like her voice in particular. So what if she comes out with great arrangements, great instrumentations, but the voice isn't there? Are you still going to listen to it?
No, of course. Well, I'm going to listen to it regardless. And to say that I don't like her voice is not even that fair, because I just don't like her voice on that one song that everybody loves. I don't know what y'all are hearing on Refill. So I do not hear it at all. A lot of the other stuff is just okay to me. It's not grabbing me. I don't think it's next level. It's just okay. She has not wowed me with a project. So I'm giving it an open ear, giving it an open mind, giving it an open heart. I'm going to try to hear what y'all hear. But you know, your boy is a tough customer.
Well, let me ask you this. Knowing the state of R&B and with the fact that she's going to be releasing 2 projects back to back, and I don't know what the timeline is. Let's assume it's going to be 2 months down the line, which is actually pretty soon, but let's just say for argument's sake it is. If her EP comes out and it does Daniel Caesar numbers and sells 2,000 copies, will we even get to the album, or will she put a halt to the project?
I guarantee you, if that thing hit a brick wall like Daniel Caesar did, we might not see that album for another 2 or 3 years. Don't be fooled. This EP is going to test the waters. And I think that's why we're hearing this from her in this little bit of hype where she's like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's been a long time since she's had her big project that everyone fell in love with but me, apparently. So I think this is going to test the waters. She's had singles here and there, but nothing is stuck. So this is going to be it. And if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. It's sink or swim for you, girl.
Yeah, and you know what? She was on Good Morning America on the 4th of July, so that's as much promo as you're gonna get as an R&B artist. So we wish Elle Varner the best of luck. She looks good, Ed. We can give her that.
Oh, I never denied that. Them albums don't be looking good, but we shall see.
We shall see. Now, Ed, when we talk about records that have great instrumentation, great arrangements, maybe even great lyrics, but just vocally it's not there, there's only one person I can think of right now, and his album's coming out soon. Your boy, the king of R&B, Jacquees. Are you ready for round two, Ed?
I am absolutely not ready for round two. I'm sure. Well, first of all, before I get to ranting, player, did you see this track list? Did you see this track list that's floating around on Instagram?
I was just gonna ask you that, but Ed, before we get into that, one of our Instagram commenters asked one of the most legitimate questions I've ever heard. His album is called Round 2. Was there even a round 1?
Wasn't that? Shout out my boy. I think that was my dog Philip that said that. Somebody said that. I was on the floor when I saw that. I love when y'all keep it real.
So can we get into this track list really quickly?
If we must.
Well, in his interview or press release, he said this album will be more mature. It's not just about sex.
Oh, really?
I'm kind of digging deeper. It's about relationships and it's about love. So with all of that in mind, these are the people that he's brought to the table to help him out with love and relationships. Ed, we have Summer Walker, so let's get that one out of the way because we love Summer.
Nah, she alright.
And then we have Young Thug, we have Gunna, we have Future, we have Bluff City, we have Little Baby, we have Fresh Young Boys, we have Ty Dolla $ign, TK Kravitz, and yeah, that seems to be it. I'm sorry if I missed anyone. I don't know any of your music anyway, but Ed, you're telling me this is going to be an R&B album?
Listen, when I think about love, when I think about relationships, when I think about the deep-seating, the achingness of love in full bloom, and just the different concepts that goes into sensuality, the names I sure think are of Future, Lil Baby, and Young Thugger. Player, come on now. At least Cousin Chris had Tank on his album. At least he tried. Come on now. This is going to be the usual half singing, half rapping garbage that has been infesting our ears for I don't know how long. I mean, the album cover has not even Lil Baby, Big Baby. It's got Birdman on the album cover. Why is he on the album cover? You know what this is going to be. Usual mess. But this is your king, huh?
And I don't know if you've seen the photo shoot for the album yet. There's one photo where he's underwater holding a mic, which is like a tribute to Muhammad Ali, who was underwater with his boxing gloves on. He is the GOAT. Jacquees is the GOAT, Ed.
Well, take a look at that picture, because that picture, him underwater with a mic, is just how this album gonna sound, with his ease.
And funny enough, he does have a record called E on it.
Oh my god.
That's pretty cool. You're gonna sample your own vocals.
That's not cool. That's just something he did, and he was like, I don't have a title for this song, so just do what he just sounded. Oh, E. All right, throw that up there.
All right, Ed. Well, Jacquees is coming out in 2 weeks, and I'm actually curious to hear what this sounds like. He had one of our top 5 songs of the year last year with his record with Donnell Jones, and he might be able to do it again. I'm not holding my breath, but can you imagine if that happened again?
Well, here's the thing, and I said that last year. As much as Jacquees didn't piss me off until he disrespected King Keith, because when anybody steps to the king, I'm coming for your throat. So that was when he got on my nerves. But it's not like that he isn't talented. His album, the last album, I can't remember, it was a bunch of random numbers. That was the album title. But that album was okay. It was pretty solid. It had its moments. It was too long, needed a trim. But it could have been a really solid debut project. It showed that he had a lot of promise. But looking at this track list and going by the tracks that he has already dropped, oh, this is about to be a monumental disaster.
All right. So Ed, I've got a couple of questions for you here that I read from the people. The people posted these questions, and I don't know how much time we have, but the people want to know, what would Janet Jackson's career be like if she wasn't related to Michael? I don't know why that came up, but it's an interesting question.
Wow, that is an interesting question. That's a really good question. Shout out to whoever dropped that off. I think that her career would still be pretty solid. When you think about the Jackson legacy and the names associated with that, when it comes to the Jermaines and Tito's and even the 3Ts, they always seem to kind of ride off of that legacy. Janet always seemed to me to kind of branch out on her own. Her last name was Jackson, but she never felt like a Jackson in that sense. And you might not understand what I'm saying, but my old school listeners probably know what I'm saying, because the Jacksons were such an institution in music, and they had a sound, and they all kind of had a similar, cut from the same cloth, so to speak. But then Janet was just kind of like with them, but like a whole different level, especially when she kind of reinvented herself in around Control Time, and then reinvented herself again in the late 90s with Velvet Rope Time. She continued to evolve, and it was kind of away from that classic Jackson sound and style. I think she would have been a huge artist regardless. Of course, having that name helped put her on and get her probably a little bit further along quicker. But no, I think she would have been big regardless.
Yeah, I agree. I
Good
think she brought
question.
something different. Yeah, but I agree with you. She did bring a lot to the table, a lot of different things. And I think the beauty of Janet now is that she's had a lot of success in pop, and she's had a lot of success in R&B. So it's not like just one thing that she did well. She crossed over, and I mean, to this day, you see the impact that she's had on people like Sierra, Tinashe is another one. So she's left her mark. So I think the Jackson brand probably helped, but I think she would have still made it. I don't see why not.
I don't see why not. And just a side note, one thing that R&B fans love to fuss about and criticize about is, oh, so-and-so went pop and going pop and like it's the worst thing ever. I have no problem with that, because when you see an evolution of an artist like a Janet or even a Michael, somebody that R&B fans have no problem embracing as their own, but dude's name is the king of pop, so like that's kind of his thing. And Janet as well. It's cool to be able to jump from genre to genre if you do it well. If you do it poorly, I'm coming for you. But if you do it well, I don't see any problem with doing that. We see it with Mariah too in her heyday. And that is what I really love about R&B. It's very malleable. It's able to transcend genres. And Janet was one of those ones who did it so well.
I agree. Now the next question, this comes from me actually. Or it didn't even come from me. It came from a Twitter user who got into an argument with me, which then in return caused me to get into an argument with Tom. So Ed, I'm going to ask you straight up. What do you consider to be a single in 2019? Like, what separates a song on an album from a single? Because I think we have been looking at it one way for many, many years, which was if the song is sent to radio and there's a music video with it, and maybe not even the music video most of the time, but if the song is on radio, it's a single. But there's a lot of different ways you can look at it now just based on the way music is being released. Someone told me before an album drops, if the artist releases a pre-order bonus for the artist, so if you pre-order a song and you get that song for free, that's considered a single. So in Chris Brown's case, before he dropped his album, he released 4 songs that you could download. His argument to me was all 4 of those songs are singles.
That's another good question, and it's weird because there are two different mindsets. We've talked a whole lot on this podcast. We've talked many hours about how music is not the same that it used to be. And you're right. Back in the day, a single was a track that was sent to radio or a track that was a video. And there would be songs that sometimes would become big just like organically that weren't technically singles. They were just songs that maybe the album came out and a DJ liked it and they started playing it on the radio, and then like it never was sent to radio. It just kind of became this thing, and it wasn't even technically a single, but it's a song that's beloved. But in today's world, I think I would count all of those as singles. Number one, we have to remember that there were times that songs would, perfect example on TLC's album Fan Mail, Silly Ho, that ridiculous song was sent out as a promotional single. Like it wasn't a single. There was no video. It was just a promotional joint. And we used to get a lot of those in the 90s and 2000s. And that ended up going to radio. But a lot of times those things would be sent out ahead of time and they would be labeled a promotional single. Half the time they wouldn't chart or they wouldn't do that well. But it was just a build buzz about an album. Kind of what Elle Varner sounds like she's trying to do. So in this case, what Cousin Chris is doing with these downloads, to me, is just an evolution of the promotional single tactic. Where it's like, all right, do this, and I'm going to reward you with this song. If the song charts, I have no problem calling that a single. Again, it's not. It goes against what we traditionally know because it doesn't follow the steps. But player, we in the Wild West. Nothing is traditional anymore with the way we do music. So it feels weird to call these singles, but I have no problem doing that. I think it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is just, and I'll use Chris Brown as an example. So one of the songs that he did drop before his album came out was one with Justin Bieber. And unless you're a Chris Brown fan and you've pre-ordered the album or you were just aware that the album came out, you probably wouldn't come across that Chris Brown and Justin Bieber song. Now, right. if you had sent that song to radio, to pop radio, Middle America would catch on to that song, not because they were checking for Chris Brown, but because the song was on the radio. And I mean, I guess the next question is who still listens to the radio, but they'll catch the song on radio, and from there they become aware of Chris Brown's new song and his project, and then they can go ahead and purchase the album afterwards. I just don't think releasing it randomly on iTunes a week before the album has the same effect or the same reach. So from that point of view, I don't really like considering it a single, but I get your point of view as well.
Well, I mean, again, listen to like how you laid that out. That was a very traditional. If this was 1996, yes, would you say it made sense? But it's 2019, so the way that he's doing it, we just got Daniel Caesar who just dropped an album out of the blue. You see, it did nothing. It was dumb. But sometimes those surprise releases end up doing very well because those are the traditional marketing techniques. And Cousin Chris, good Lord, this piece of garbage. He didn't even want you to buy the stuff. This whole project is a scam to get you to boost his streaming numbers. So in that case, it's not even about putting out a song, promoting an album the traditional way, getting that song to chart like that, blah, 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 blah. That way would kind of go against his strategy of just bombarding y'all music, boosting up his streaming numbers, get the lemmings to stream it like crazy, and then he reaps all the rewards and, buys a gold airplane that he'll crash into a bridge or something because he's crazy. But I think that's why you aren't getting a traditional path with those things. But to me, even that Bieber song would probably count as a single. Now, the one thing I wouldn't count as a single, and this is when things get weird, and again, somebody's going to battle me on this, and I'm kind of in your court on this one. When these songs start randomly jumping up the charts, they have never had any play, and it's just like the streaming numbers boosted up. Now, those I wouldn't really consider singles. Those are album cuts. So if it wasn't sent to radio, if it wasn't a promotional single, which is what I'm counting these iTunes things, if it was just a joint on an album that streaming numbers boosted up a whole bunch and is up jumping up the charts, I wouldn't call that a single. Again, maybe I'm wrong and I should call it a single, but I wouldn't call that a single. But in the other cases that you mentioned, those are probably singles, and the Bieber thing would be a promotional single to me.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you what is an actual single, and this will be our SoulBack track of the day, and I know you'll be excited about this one. Here We Go Again by Portrait. What do you like about that one?
Oh man, Portrait, you took it back. Talk about another group that just, I don't know. Seems like they had more gas in the tank than they should have. I felt like we should have gotten more out of them than we did. But man, that era was such a competitive time, and there were so many great artists just dropping all over the place. But man, what a great song! And if any of our listeners aren't familiar with that one, I think that was 90. Is that like 92 or 3? I think I had just gotten to high school, showing my age, y'all. But yeah, that album, I think that was on their debut. But yeah, that song is one of those ones that to me just defines high school era, middle school / high school. So it's really nostalgic. Y'all go check that out if you aren't familiar with it. And Portrait's one of those groups that, man, should have been a little bit bigger than they were.
Yep, and their debut, full of New Jack Swing classics. So I know Soul Child is up there smiling somewhere.
Oh yeah, Soul Child and Label Them Legends.
Exactly. Now, Ed, before we continue, I'm going to just pause right here because I actually interviewed Johnta Austin earlier in the week while you and Tom were away. So we're going to play that interview right now. Johnta Austin, Grammy Awards singer-songwriter. So let's do that right now. So grab your popcorn and your soda.
All right, welcome back to SoulBack. This is the R&B podcast, and like I said, every week we try to bring in a special guest, someone who has brought SoulBack, and we have another person who has done just that. This man is responsible for, honestly, some of the biggest R&B hits in history, writing for people like Mariah, Tyrese, Mary J. Blige, and he has a new single out as well. I have Johnta Austin. Johnta, what is going on?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing good. I'm telling you, a lot of our fans were really excited when we announced that you were dropping a new single, which you just dropped, Love Angel. And it kind of came out of the blue. We were all wondering, when's Johnta coming back with new music? And it's finally here. So I guess just talk about the single and the timing and everything.
Well, yeah, it's the first single off the album, Love, Sex, and Religion. And, we've kind of had it just waiting in the wings for a while. Some of the fans, I've been working on the Love, Sex, and Religion project for some years now, and it's, we've kind of teased it for a while, but we really felt it was time to, to put it out. So it's something that we knew that we were going to do together, and by we, myself, Troy Taylor, Brian Michael Cox, Jermaine Dupri, we, knew it was a project that we were going to release this year. It's just, a feel-good R&B record. Troy Taylor and Spruill produced it. And, we're just trying to, to bring back R&B over the last, 8 months. I've kind of just been inspired by, some of the return to what I feel is just, classic R&B. So I felt like now was the time.
Right. And over on our podcast, we kind of joke that your Love, Sex, and Religion album is like the R&B Detox because a lot of people have been waiting on this project. Has it felt like a long time for you to put this out?
It has, yeah, and it's interesting to hear that you guys and the fans call it that because we've privately called it that while working on it. I guess it felt like that, so that's funny to hear, but it's finally upon us.
Right, and as a songwriter, because we always hear artists have to evolve with the times. Or do they really? And then producers, they kind of feel like they need to add different elements that are more modern to adapt to today's sound. As a songwriter, are there things that you have to do to evolve your sound, or do you just stick with your formula?
I believe it's a combination of both. I mean, you can't be resistant to change or resistant to, trends or flows. And I do think that a lot of the newer artists and newer creatives, have brought some things that are, definitely worth looking at and paying attention to, and they're very creative, I think. So it's a combination of both, still staying true as far as, how I approach it lyrically. I still want to have some substance, and kind of tell stories from top to bottom, whenever I can. But, if I can implement, some of the, new melodies or, just new words or whatever, lingo, and make it make sense inside of, my storytelling, then I'm not resistant to that. I think it's okay.
Right. Because I'll tell you, Johnta, one of the things that we struggle with, especially in this generation, because we came from, the 90s into 2000s R&B, we're not used to some of the melodies that they're bringing to the table. And, I think R&B fans in general, we're old school. We just stick to our ways. So from this new generation of R&B, what aspect of the songwriting have you been really impressed by?
I think just some of the kind of thinking outside of the box. Like I love, I'm a huge fan of the Freudian album that Daniel Caesar released, and his approach of changing a beat midway through, and starting slow and then going into something, and then just Frank Ocean with just some of his topics and kind of the way he approached songwriting, which was still, I felt like, great melodies, but some of the topics are just his approach was something that I felt was new. So yeah, I mean, we're used to the great R&B, just classic melodies of the 90s, and that's still amazing, right? I came up on Jodeci and Babyface and R. Kelly and just all of these great writers and producers, and it was just classic R&B. But I do feel like a lot of the young kids today are bringing an approach and a fresh perspective, and they're kind of thinking outside of the box a little bit more. So it challenges me to think outside of the box, while still staying true to what I like to do.
Right. And I'm curious to hear what you think, because a lot of R&B songs now, they clock in at about 2 minutes and 14 seconds without a bridge. Is that enough time to say what you want to say on a record? Like, to me, the lack of a bridge is really hurting the genre. How do you feel about it?
I see where you're coming from with that, and I agree, to an extent, because I like just a fleshed out, song format where you can really add, an additional layer with the bridge. But bridges have always been something that's, traditionally it's one of the harder things to write. You have the hook, but I don't think it's anything new, because you'll see a lot of artists, if we go through songs in the 90s where they may have done a musical bridge, and sometimes JD and I learned from Lionel Richie. If you have a great song, and sometimes you don't need to have a bridge, and he talked about some of his songs didn't have bridges, and JD pointed out that Nice and Slow for Usher, You Got It Bad, for Usher does not have a bridge. It's just kind of a solo, if you will. So it's still the same length of time that we're used to. So, it still goes over 3 minutes. So I see what you're saying as far as the time. But sometimes if the the hook and the verses are strong, you may not need a bridge. We joke a lot about the Every Little Step I Take remix, and where Bobby, Babyface had Bobby sing the first verse twice. You know what I mean? So that's and that's the cool thing about R&B, is that you have your standards, and I love them, and I'm never going to trade in a good standard and a classic record. But when you can think outside of the box as well, sometimes you just got to let the spirit move you. When Will I See You Again is another great example. I mean, he played the guitar in the bridge, and then he brought the B section back, and and then went back to the hook. So there's some examples of thinking outside the box. So I'm okay with it. I would like a song that's a little bit longer than 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I'm with you there, because it just makes me want to hear more. Like when I first heard Old Town Road, which is more in the country / hip hop vein, I was still just like, is that it? Like, wait, like I want, I was happy about the remix because it was just, first it was longer, so yeah, I'll see where you're coming from as far as the length of songs.
Right, absolutely. And, I read in another interview, the timing of this project that you're putting out, it has a lot to just do with the state of R&B. And, you kind of feel like R&B is turning around. There's some great artists, like you mentioned, like Daniel Caesar, who's putting out some great records. What song, because we always have this discussion about just the turns of R&B and trends and just the cycle of it. At what point did you realize that R&B was turning around and making a comeback? Because I'll tell you, Johnta, from about that early 2010 mark, it wasn't looking pretty, but with records like Boot Up and the Bruno Mars project, it looks like it's starting to make its turnaround. What was that record that made you realize that, okay, it's coming back?
Boot Up was one of them, and That's What I Like from Bruno. I think that, and then there are a couple. I like Get You from Daniel. And then Location from Khalid, his project, to see how that was accepted. I thought that was like, okay, this is that combination. But yet to see Boot Up, really take off, and it's just like, wow, this is the R&B that that we do, that I like, that I write, that I, what I mean. It was. It was refreshing. So, yeah, kind of a combination of all of those. But, yeah, two standouts, I would say, That's What I Like and Boot Up definitely were the ones that, showed me that R&B is back and people still want to hear it if, we do it. I think it was just the courage to do it, because I think just there was just a moment where a lot of R&B singers got into wanting to be more hip-hop. And so it wasn't – I don't think consumer-wise that there was ever a time when R&B wasn't, where there wasn't a place for it. I think just, some of our R&B artists may have gotten a little bit away from the R&B. So, Boot Up and That's What I Like reminded us all that, okay, we can still do real songs and people still want to hear them.
Absolutely. Now, Johnta, I don't know if I'm allowed to admit this, but in the late 2000s, when R&B was making its shift, and, to me, it kind of felt like it wasn't the R&B that I grew up loving anymore. That was around the same time a lot of your songs started to leak on the internet, so I found myself gravitating towards those demos that were on the internet.
Nice.
And, of course, as a songwriter, you hate your songs being leaked, but I know you probably established a pretty big fan base just off of those leaked records. What do you think those songs, do you think that benefited your career at all?
Yeah, I mean, anytime, I used to kind of fight the demos being leaked, but now, I do understand that, just the hunger for the content and people wanting to hear, music from the artist. So I think there's, it helped in that, there's kind of been a consistent following of people who, really do recognize my name in music, which is weird to me in a sense. Sometimes people around me have to point out, like, no, people know your music, people, know who you are, people, understand the history. I guess I'm, I never want to, I never think of it that way, that like, oh man, people are, looking up Johnta Austin records, but, it's a good feeling. And yeah, I do think that it's kind of helped over time, because it's created that feeling, like you say, the R&B detox. You don't get to that without, following a person and really knowing the music and wanting to hear more.
Right. Absolutely. But I'm sure you're also glad that the leaking has stopped over the years.
Yeah. Well, the only problem with the leaking is that, sometimes it's a song I may have written for someone else, or, sometimes it's just a song that wasn't, quite ready for consumption. But I think true fans understand that. So, that's my only thing. As long as you guys, understand that it may not have been a finished product, but if you still love it and want to hear it, then, cool with me.
Right. So a couple of accomplishments that I want to point out here. Billboard recently, or not recently, a year ago, released a chart and stated that Be Without You, based on, I guess, their analytics, Be Without You by Mary J. Blige is the biggest R&B song of all time. And We Belong Together by Mariah was the biggest song in general of the 2000s. So I guess what do those songs mean to you? Because I guess to the general public, those are legendary songs at this point. But what do those songs mean to you?
I mean, they're staples. I mean, it kind of, helps cement, I feel, my writing career. And when you hear things like Song of the Decade, I was just telling Jermaine a couple of weeks ago, like in 6 months, we're gonna pass the torch to another Song of the Decade. Like, that's how significant that is.
Right.
That it was announced in 2010, and it's taking us this long. Like, you have to have something that is significant over a span of 10 years, which is really a long time. So that's huge in and of itself, just to have that. And when you think about it, it's like, we're still the Song of the Decade until they announce another
right.
one. So that, that type of significance. And then, to work with an artist, like Mariah and with Mary, just two legends who were already legends. I mean, that's huge to create, kind of chart topping and just, history making records for legends who have already made, tremendous history before I ever came into their lives, before I ever, met them. So to be a part of that story is even bigger. With To Be Without You to, R&B. That's where it starts for me. So to be on that chart and to be called, the number one R&B song of all time, it's like, wow, that's huge, man. It's I can take that, with me forever.
Right. And you have a pretty extensive discography. You've written a lot of hits here. Those are two of obviously your biggest. What would you say if you were to group some of the songs you've written into that category, With You, Without You, and We Belong Together? What would number 3 be for you?
That's kind of a tough one because, you have personal favorites. Like I Don't Wanna that I did for Aaliyah is a personal favorite, yep. and I feel like all of the work that Jermaine and Brian and I did on Janet's 20YO project was really great. So you have those personal favorites, but for me, I would probably say Sweet Lady has to be,
right.
Number 3 on that list, just because that was my first top 10 hit. And,
yep.
When you're able to help someone, have a breakout moment in their career, which is what that song was for Tyrese, that's great to help start, get an artist started and then right up. Maybe a close competition for third would be Yo for Chris Brown.
Yeah.
Because again, another young artist who was a brand new artist at the time, that we helped, launch a career of someone who's gone on to, just become a huge superstar. But yeah, probably Sweet Lady would be my pick for 3.
Right. That's a great choice. Now, let's go back to these hit records that you've had in terms of, at what point in the process, because you've had songs on albums, you've had number 1 hits, but at what point in the process, or is there even a point in the process when you realize a song becomes that big that it becomes like Song of the Decade? Like, is there a formula or a blueprint to get to that point?
Not at all. No, when we did We Belong Together, I knew that we had something great. I knew that it was a hit. I did not know that it was the type of hit that it became. And I don't think anyone who was involved with the record, would pick or would say that they knew that it was, going to be, what it eventually, became, like at the, time biggest audience for radio, and then, 14 weeks at number 1 on the Hot 100 is, that's, you don't see that coming. I just knew that we had a great song. Same with Be Without You. I just knew that it was a great song. When I heard Mary's voice on it, I knew that we had something special. But the magnitude of a hit that both of those songs were, No, I wish I could tell you. I mean, because if I had that blueprint to create those every time, we'd love to create those every time out the gate. It's you do your very best, and then we turn it over to the fans, to the public, and and then they took it from there. So that was up to the fans how big those records became.
Right. And something that you touched on, and I just want to reiterate, songs like Be Without You and We Belong Together, they were created, later in those two artists' career. And I think what those two songs did for the new generation, it was like their, what they associated with Mary and Mariah, those who may not have been old enough to remember Vision of Love or My Life. Those were records that they can associate with these two artists.
Exactly. So you're able to, help bridge, the generation, and and that's a good thing, and help extend, already brilliant careers,
right,
and storied careers.
Right. Now I'll tell you what, Johnta, Mary performed at the BET Awards, I guess 2 weeks ago, and she ran through her hits, but she didn't do Be Without You, I think, just due to some of what's going on in her personal life and what's associated with that record. Does that bother you at all? Because Be Without You is a favorite to many, but just due to personal circumstances, it's probably tough to see her ever performing that song again.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. Mary's a good friend. I understand wanting to hear it. I want to hear her do it. That's so I can say that I want to hear her do it, but respect any decision that she makes, and and not doing the record, for the time being. But hopefully, we get to a point where we hear her do it again. But it's crazy. I think when you get enough hits, you have so many that. Mary probably has 10 songs that you feel like you want to hear her, sing, every single time, more than that really. And so inevitably in a show, some things, may get left out, because that's also kind of the curse of being such a legendary artist, is that, you have so much music to share with people. So, I saw Trey Songz perform once, and he did I Need a Girl that I wrote for him, but he didn't do Can't Help But Wait, and but he had so many other hits,
right.
And when you have 45 minutes to do a show, occasionally some might get left out. I know for a time they said that Chris might not do With You, and then some nights he would do With You. So that's I want to hear an artist do my songs all the time,
right.
Of course, but I definitely recognize when they've reached a level where it's just so many hits, there's so much music that you can't do them all. That's a good problem to have. I hope I have that problem one day.
Right. And, just a couple more questions here. You mentioned you kind of helped build the foundation for the early parts of Chris Brown's career along with Sean Garrett, and he's kind of deviated from his original sound a little bit, just because I guess he's had more parts in the writing process. As somebody who helped build that foundation, is it tough to look and say, okay, well, his sound is different than what it was, or are you just happy to see him evolve as an artist?
Happy to see him evolve. I'm happy, when artists take possession of what they want to do, and and how they see themselves, and creatively what they want to present to the world. So, you can only applaud that and say, okay, hopefully, from, Sean and myself and B. Cox and some of the early people, he's picked up things, from us, and he applies it, to his creative process today. You feel like you've imparted things in artists that they take with them, hopefully. But no, it's all love and support. for the evolution of any artist. I want to see artists tell their truth. And so if they feel like they tell it every time, whether I'm, brought in to assist in telling that truth or not, as long as they feel, great about what they did, then that's what's important.
Right. I'll tell you what, though, Johnta, I still want to hear another Chris Brown and Johnta Austin record at some point.
Hey, I love to hear that too. So we'll try to make that happen.
Right. So, I want to go through this with you. We were digging through your Twitter and we came across a tweet that, we reposted on our Facebook and it got a lot of responses. It was when you listed out your top 5 favorite songwriters and producers of all time.
Yes.
And being that you're a songwriter, I want to go through the songwriters that you've listed, and then I want to ask you about a couple that our fans have chosen as well. And we'd like to hear from an artist and a songwriter's perspective on how they view, another songwriter's process and their work.
Okay, let's do it.
So, number one, you have Stevie Wonder, and he's like the GOAT. So what do you have to say about Stevie's work?
Man, I think that the melodies, right? Like it Stevie brought just his interpretation of what melody could be inside of a song and how he heard the music, and then of course the lyrics. And then you think that, like Songs in the Key of Life, when we were working on I can't remember what album it was, the Raymond versus Raymond album with Usher, and we're listening to Stevie, Songs in the Key of Life album, and I'm just like, when you think that this was a 26-year-old man that did this, and Usher looks, he's like, he was 26, like, so you think like, wow, this was a young man, just levels above, as far as Johnta Austin goes, levels above what I saw myself as at 26 years old. So just those kind of, to know that, that type of, just perfection was possible. Stevie is, and just decades of it, just decades of music, that never gets old and is always on point. That's why Stevie's the GOAT.
Right. And then 2 and 3, to me, these are interchangeable, and I saw a lot of fans debating between the two, R. Kelly and Babyface. You actually have R. Kelly at number 2. Number 3, you have Babyface. And we both know they're legends in their own right, but what was the rationale behind it? It must be pretty close.
It's very close. When I first started writing songs, that was the era, like everyone wanted to write like Babyface. Everyone wanted to, have a big, just a big record, I'll Make Love to You, or, Water Runs Dry, or End of the Road, just that type of record. But I feel like melody and just edginess, when I heard the Download remix, it changed my life. Like, it changed my perspective of how I approach music, and just so much of what I do has been inspired by R. Kelly, from a songwriting standpoint, and from a lyric and melody standpoint, and just structure of records and how he did them, and the storytelling in the record.
Right.
That's, to me, that was the, that is what has inspired me. Babyface is just, classic lyrics, structure, everything. He can, he's amazing. You take the Waiting to Exhale project, and how he was able to make that piece of music fit with the movie, while not being too on the nose. Because I personally, as much as I love Be Without You, Not Gonna Cry is my favorite Mary J. Blige song of all time. And Babyface wrote that, and that's my favorite song from Mary. So Babyface had it, but just I don't know, man, the edginess, and like I say, that Download, remix, it changed me, and it became like every time a R. Kelly album, came out, I used to call around and make sure I had the album before it came out. And I would always get it. I hope I would always go buy it too when it came out. So Kels, don't be mad at me for. But I wanted to hear it, early. And if I hear something like, man, when I heard Half on a Baby, I'm just like, man, I'm going to my basement and I'm gonna write a record, or I'm not coming out until I have a record, until I have something that I feel like matches what this guy's doing.
Right. For me, it's tough. I kind of want to give I probably favor Babyface a little more just because personally, and it might sound crazy, but I think Can We Talk by Tevin Campbell is the best R&B song of the 90s.
Oh, great record.
I can't be mad at you if you choose R. Kelly above him.
Yeah. Can We Talk? That's an amazing record.
Absolutely. And then at 4 and 5, you have Lionel Richie and Norman Whitfield. What do you like about those two?
I mean, Norman was the Motown sound, between him and Smokey. I mean, you had Holland Dozier Holland, but just those Temptation records because that's where I first fell in love with music. My godmother playing the Motown sound, and specifically, the Temptations. My father is a huge Temptations fan, and so those were the records that I grew up on. So and Norman just had he was a storyteller as well. I mean, you listen to Papa Was a Rolling Stone, like, geez, what is this guy? Those were the kind of songs where it's like, this can't be made up. Like, somebody's daddy had to be this way for it to come up with this type of, there's no way you can fake this type of writing. That's at least, how I felt about it. And then, man, Lionel Richie, man, he could, and what can he do? He can write for Kenny Rogers. He can do the Commodores. He can do, Dancing on the Ceiling, do pop records. Just, I mean, the pen is crazy, man. Just to, and the simplicity of it is like Lionel is like the true embodiment of less is more. Like it's
right.
It's a very simple melody and a simple structure, but it's brilliant. Like it's Sail On. When you listen to a record like Sail On, by the Commodores, and it's just they got that country twang on it, but then there's this R&B thing, and it's like, wow, it's just beautiful music is what I feel like. Norman made the grit of that time, but then Lionel just came and made just beautiful, beautiful songs, beautiful records.
Agreed. So, Johnta, I have 5 writers that our fans have contributed to. So you can give me whatever you have, first thing that comes to mind about these songwriters. The first one is, and he might technically be counted as a producer, but he did write a lot of the group's work, which is Devontae Swing.
Yeah, brilliant. Probably, to me, as much as I love Boyz II Men, the longevity was there, but the Forever My Lady and Diary of a Mad Band album, the A-sides to both of those albums, probably the best R&B of the 90s.
Nice.
Yeah.
The next songwriter we have, and I really like it that our fans nominate these people, someone like Joe.
Joe is my mentor. He raised me. That when I was a 13-year-old kid who had a deal with RCA, I was working with Joe after his first album on Mercury, and I knew those records, and so to be with him young, I was a young 13-year-old kid working with Joe was writing and doing the vocal demos, and Pharrell was produced. Pharrell and Chad were producing. These were young kids back then. So yeah, Joe is, to me, everything that I, wanted to be in a vocalist, coming up. He's still my favorite vocalist, in the genre, still to this day.
Right. Another songwriter, and I'm glad people are finally starting to recognize her talents as a songwriter, which is Mariah Carey, who I know you've worked with extensively. What do you like about her songwriting?
She knows her melodies and then the lyrics that, you know, she's able to bring. She understands culture. I mean, you want to talk about someone who's, you know, always in tune and never really seems to lose touch with what's going on. You know, she knew it in the early 90s. She knew it in the 2000s. She knows it today. You know, so that's what Mariah brings to the table, just a consistency and a know-how. That's what I think of when I think of Mariah, like the know-how of how to create, you know, hit records for, you know, for every time period.
Right. This one came up a lot. Static Major. So Anxious and Rock the Boat, right, are like, wow. It's not just the writing, a very unique structure of song and the ear candies, the backgrounds, you know, the different, like, he would do melodies that, you know, on paper really seem like they would clash with each other. Like, you shouldn't be doing these two things at once. But he was able to do it, and it was bananas. Like, it was crazy and amazing. Like, he broke the rules of just arranging in his writing, as far as how he set up the structure and in the backgrounds. You know, yeah, I'm glad to hear the fans bring him up too. I feel like in a way, he's kind of you know, underrated. People know the songs, and you know, but you know, yeah, maybe not all the credit that he should get. I mean, because you know, he's got some joints. Absolutely. So yeah. I've got two more for you, Johnta, here. This is one that actually came up a bit too. Keith Sweat.
Ooh, that's interesting. As a writer, he, you know, him and Teddy did, you know, the Make It Last Forever. I still play that. You know, and love what him and Teddy did there, and then just his longevity as well, of being able to kind of, you know, shift with the times to, you know, to have a record like Nobody, you know, 15, you know, 20 years after Make It Last Forever, and then, you know, another reinvention with the LSG project. You know, he's another one who, you know, who knows, he knows, you know, who he is and what fans want to hear from him. So that's an interesting one, but I like it. I like Keith.
Yep. And then the last one people mentioned, and this probably comes as no surprise, Johnta Austin.
Ooh, that guy. Man, I just like to be a storyteller. I just think of myself as a storyteller, you know, and kind of a message bringer. I want to tell stories, provoke thought, and, you know, but still make people feel, you know, good, connect, you know, with people. So like when you hear a line and Chris Brown's with you, you know, like, you know, I know I can't be the only one. You know, I bet his heart's all over the world tonight. That's, you know, that's a true feeling. Like when I write about love, or when I write about this, you know, or even Call the Radio, you know, in the Mary song, just that, you know, my desire to tell stories and really, you know, put the listener and the fan in the driver's seat as well, and feel like you're right there with me.
And you've done that for so many years now, Johnta. You know, we're out of time on the podcast, but is there anything that you'd like to add?
Man, I appreciate the conversation, man. It's good. I could, you know, talk for 20 more minutes about music and just, you know, how much I love it, and it's good to talk, you know, with someone and reach an audience that really does love the music and everything that goes on behind it. So, you know, no, I appreciate the time and the conversation, and love Sex and Religion, August 2nd, and Love Angels out now, and keep supporting the music. And thank you to everybody.
Absolutely, Johnta. Just want to let you know that we'll always support what you got going on, what you're writing for other people, and just keep the music coming, and you've got our support.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And Ed, that was Johnta Austin on the podcast. It was a shame that you couldn't join us for that one because he was analyzing Keith Sweat's songwriting.
Man, I'm very. The dude is very smart, and we have a lot of smart guests that come on. But he's just one of those artists that really knows what he's talking about. And yeah, I'm mad I missed that. Dumb old work kept me from that interview. So sorry I missed that one, but that was a good one. I hope y'all enjoyed it.
Exactly, but because you love uneducated comments,
Do I?
Note that I said uneducated. Can we get into the Play It Please Awards?
Oh, we definitely, because we got something to give out this week.
So, Ed, it pains me to do this, but we're going to have to give out a Play It Please to Cousin Chris Brown once again.
You have finally seen the light.
Well, I have a rebuttal that I will give you shortly, but to summarize what happened on his song, on one of his records, he says something along the lines of, I only like girls with, was it nice hair or good hair? What did he say?
I think he said nice hair was the thing. I think it was nice hair.
Which makes it good.
Something to that
which makes it
effect.
acceptable.
It wasn't like it wasn't good hair.
But it's acceptable that he says nice hair.
It's acceptable, but he's skirting the line. Go ahead before I explain why he's skirting the line.
Well, he said that he only likes girls with nice hair, and it got the internet riled up for some unknown reason. He was just stating his opinion, and he made that clear in a comment to one of the people on Instagram and said something along the lines of, why can't I like girls with nice hair? It's not like you guys like dudes that are short or fat. It was something along those lines, and I might be misquoting him here, Ed, but that doesn't seem too bad. He has a preference.
Look, can I break down the usual ignorance of this guy? Listen, your preference is I like nice hair. First of all, he needs to understand how triggering those words are, because good hair, quote unquote, that nice hair gets very close to good hair. Good hair is a very triggering term, especially in the black community, because there have been many, many women who for decades have been criticized because their grade of hair is not considered good. And good hair is long and straight and European looking. And as a black man who sings to a black audience, he needs to be careful. I'm not criticizing him for that line, because I heard the line. There are many more problems with that song than that one line, trust me. That song is terrible. But for that line, I don't think he's worthy of criticism. I don't. I mean, yes, it's his preference, but he should have thought, because this is why you need to have an editor on your team and not henchmen and yes men. And man, like, dude, you need to clean that up, because your black fan base gonna feel a type of way about this. The black women is all you got left. Don't piss them off. So, although I don't have an issue with the line, it was definitely on the edge. What I do have an issue with is his usual rebuttal, because as once again, he threw a tantrum like a giant baby, ranted and screamed and hollered and acted ridiculous, and brought more attention to it. If people had just brought it up and he was just either ignored it. It's okay to ignore stuff, y'all. I don't know why in 2019 we feel like we got to answer everything. If he had ignored it and been a bigger person, or said, oh, I see what y'all saying, my bad, that was my preference, but I did not mean to demean black women and their hair, which is a triggering issue, cool. That's being an adult. But no, we can't be an adult. We got to start insulting other people, because that's how idiots do. Instead of having adult conversations, they just throw food. So Cousin Chris being Cousin Chris at the end of the day, I shed no tears, even though I was kind of on his side.
Well, Ed, he's fishing for approval now, and he might just have it. He posted a picture of one of his fans, who I guess was like an overweight lady, standing next to the Indigo album cover, and Chris in the caption wrote, "Love my fans." Is he forgiven?
Why do y'all like this dude? Please, why do you like it? What? I'm leaving. I'm leaving it alone. I'm leaving it alone. I'm gonna go pull a Tom. I'm gonna get some chicken. I'm gonna take one bite out of it and throw it away. Cause that's how I feel every time I talk to this dude. I feel like I'm wasting my life.
Well, shout outs to Chris Brown. Go cop that Indigo.
No shout outs to him.
All right. The other play please that I have here, and it's kind of a sensitive topic because this is an R&B podcast and a music podcast, so we take our artists very seriously. And Taylor Swift, as you know, Ed, she doesn't own her masters. The masters were bought by Scooter Braun, who is the manager for Ariana Grande, Kanye West. I'm not sure if he's still the manager, and Justin Bieber. And Ed, I think the play please for this is not because Taylor Swift doesn't have her masters, but the play please for this, Ed, is that she had an opportunity, from my understanding, to purchase those masters. She didn't do it for whatever reason, maybe because she didn't have the financial backing to do so. The masters ended up in the hands of Scooter, and now Taylor is mad because she's mad that Scooter has the masters and she's not a fan of Scooter.
Well, look here. Here's the thing with that. First of all, and I have heard the story, and I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, she should have just bought them. Well, look. Buying anybody who has listened to this podcast and watched one episode of Unsung on VH1 knows that buying your masters ain't like going down the street and buying some Twizzlers. Like, it's a thing, and it is not easy. And even for big artists, like some of our most beloved artists, they all get that song. You can play these songs and moves that you want to. They aren't getting a dime because that's the way the industry has been set up. So, unfortunately, it's not as easy as just saying, well, she just should have bought them, because maybe she shouldn't have. Some of y'all must should have paid your cell phone bill, and you ain't done that, so don't throw stones. But in this case, I agree with you. She didn't get them. She had the opportunity to, couldn't pull it off. Life sucks, that's business. But don't whine and cry about it. Like, it's unfortunate for you, but why are you mad at him? Like, again, business as usual. He's the one that was up on his business and took it. It sucks for her. If I was her, I'd be pissed off. But throwing temper tantrums on social media is not going to get stuff your way. And it's certainly not going to... Again, I think this is old man Ed here going at it. But it's a weird mentality these days where something, if you feel wrong, you feel like you have to like scream about it on social media in hopes that there will be like this social media uprising on your side, and then all these people would fight in your defense. And I think there was some big GoFundMe for her to buy her masters back. If y'all sending money to Taylor to do that, y'all need to send some my way, because I need some improvements to do over at Soul and Stereo Studios. The wife wants some new landscaping done, so holla at your boy. Anyway, look, I mean, it sucks. But I don't understand why we have to make a big issue out of it. And also, making a big issue out of it makes you look kind of crazy. So, just handle your business on the low. Handle it there. Yeah. Why are we screaming and hollering about this? Again, it makes you look immature. And kills her.
She posted that rant on Tumblr. I didn't even know Tumblr still existed.
Oh, Tumblr's still a thing. And unfortunately, it's just for rants like this.
Well, there you have it. Ed, I think that seems to be it for this week's podcast. What's going on with soulandstereo.com?
Man, if you haven't been my Soul and Stereo in the past week, you got to do that. First of all, shout out to my boy Alex Goodman, as usual. Alex always comes through with the good posts and the good contributions. A couple months ago, he did a post ranking 10 of the best songs from Brian Michael Cox. That got such a good response that he decided to come back with 10 more great songs written or produced by Brian Michael Cox, and a lot of them are my boy Kyle's fave, so go check that out. But the biggest post of the week has been my ranking of the 25 best albums of the year so far. We're halfway through 2019. If you're trying to catch up on the good stuff and stay away from the garbage, go check out 25 of the best songs there. I've got maybe 10 or so honorable mentions, but they're definitely songs from both R&B and hip hop that you at least, before you put them on your playlist, if not a playlist staple, deserves your ear. So check them out. A lot of artists that we've been kind of hyping up this year, from Lion Babe to Raheem Devon, Ari Lennox, so many good ones. And a lot of them we've been, Lucky Day, of course. Go check them out and get caught up on the good stuff.
Sounds good. And Ed, I would just like to give a shout out to the Cypher as well, because last week they made a record, like 4 separate Rodney Jerkins posts on your Cypher. It went from who thinks Rodney Jerkins is underrated to whatever happened to Rodney Jerkins to what is your favorite song by Rodney Jerkins to someone saying, is it just me or is Rodney Jerkins not actually good? I was like, this is a lot of Dark Child conversation for 1 week. Where are we?
Well, see, that's why I love this Cypher. If you're a fan of this podcast, you got to be in the Soul and Serial Cypher, because you randomly, it'll just be a Rodney Jerkins day. We're just talking about Rodney Jerkins all day long, reminiscing about good songs. People who aren't a fan of him, like, what's the big deal? And then we talk about why he is a big deal or why he isn't a big deal. It's just a big community of music fans. You don't have to worry about the trolls being in there, because I get rid of them. I'll step on them and kick them to the curb. So it's fun, and if you're on Facebook, it's one of the few reasons to ever get on freaking Facebook, that cesspool. So go in the Soul and Stereo Cypher, and we can be your musical oasis.
Mm-hmm. And that is that. Ed, that's it for this week. Pleasure as always. We'll get Tom back hopefully next week, and we'll continue to talk more R&B. Your homework for this week is to listen to Elle Varner's EP when it drops, and we want a full review from top to bottom when it is out.
The things I do for this podcast.
Absolutely. All right, Ed, we're out of here.
All right.